Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome again to this new lesson, which is very, very important and essential as it deals with one of the commonest patterns of paragraphs, which is comparison and contrast paragraph. Comparison and contrast, we practice these two tasks daily. Today we learn how to write about them in the form of an academic paragraph. Now, I have these two terms, which are comparison and contrast. What do we mean by them? So, in fact, when we say comparison, when we compare two or more things, they can be two people, two places, two towns, two objects, and so on. When we compare, it means we show and speak only about similarities. There are similarities and aspects of similarity. And when we say contrast, it means here we refer to differences. When we contrast two or more elements or things, here of course we mean we explain and show their differences and only their differences. Right. So when we say comparison, we mean explain similarities. When we say contrast, we mean explain differences. Right. Good. Now I have the name of this type of paragraph, which is comparison and contrast paragraph. What do I do in this type of paragraphs? Do I compare or contrast or compare and contrast, combine both tasks? What do I do here? So for this pattern of paragraphs, we have many choices. Clear? It means you can write a paragraph in which you focus only on the similarities. It means in which you can only compare between these two or more elements. Right? Or also, you can write a paragraph in which you focus only on the differences. It means you will just contrast these two elements and explain and show their aspects of difference. Or also, you can combine both tasks and you speak about first similarities, explain them, show them, then you move on to discuss the aspects of difference between these two or more elements you are writing about. Right. These elements, of course, can be two people, can be two towns, two countries, two objects. Clear? I don't know. We have many choices and options here. Right. Just now, but in a comparison and contrast paragraph, you can only compare or only contrast or combine both. Compare and contrast. You are free as a writer. Clear? Now, how do I write a comparison and contrast paragraph? What should I do first? Now, before this, we need to know and learn about certain key terms which are very essential and important when writing this type of paragraphs. Clear? And these key terms represent essential parts or essential elements in this type of paragraphs. The first term is subjects. Subjects. I must have my subjects of comparison or contrast. What are my subjects? Subjects represent those elements I tend to compare or contrast. They can be two people, they can be two cities, they can be, two places, they can be, town and city, motorbike and car, and so on. So, these are called my subjects. For example, if I want to write about comparing, for example, or contrasting motorbike and the car, the motorbike and the car are called subjects. If I want to write paragraph about Montreal, city Montreal, and Barcelona. So Barcelona and Montreal are called my subjects. Right. So the elements I tend to write about, I tend to compare, I tend to contrast, and speak about in my paragraph are called my subjects. Now, second term is called points. How can I compare or contrast these two elements, these two towns, these two means of transport? How? In what way? Here I need points. Points of comparison and contrast. For example, if I choose to write about Barcelona and Montreal, I will, for example, compare or contrast them. I must think and come up with the points of comparison or contrast. I can speak about people in both cities, the climate in both cities, and the commercial activity in both cities. So these people, climate, and commercial activity are the points, right, of comparison or contrast. If I want to contrast, they are the points through which I will show differences. If I want to compare between them, these are my points through which I will show similarities between the two towns or cities. Clear? Right. Example, I will write a paragraph about motorbike and cars. Motorbike and car. How? If I want to contrast or compare them, I must here also come up with my points of comparison or contrast. I can speak about form of the two means of transport, about the speed in both means of transport, and safety in both of them. So these points for speed and safety represent the points of my comparison or contrast. Through them, I will show clear how these two means of transport are similar or how they are different. Clear? Different. So I need to have, as you see here, these points on which I can, or depending on which I can develop my paragraph of comparison or contrast. Right. Now, when we want to write also a comparison and contrast paragraph, we need to follow a methodical procedure and way of writing. That's why specialists in writing suggest and recommend following the procedure of what we call the 4 P's. If you want to write a good comparison and contrast paragraph, you should follow the procedure of the 4 P's. What do I mean by 4 P's procedure? 4 P's means P. These 4 P's, everyone represents what? Every P represents what? A word or a step, right, which starts with the letter P. The first P represents what? Represents purpose. When writing a comparison and contrast paragraph, I must decide my purpose. Am I going to compare and show similarity between these two subjects, two cities? Or am I going to speak only about differences and contrasts? Or am I going to speak about both? So here I must decide my purpose, whether it is comparison or contrast. Right. Second P represents what? Represents points. When I decide my purpose, compare, contrast, now I must come up with my points. Like what we see earlier. These points, of course, are 3 key elements or notions on which I will base my comparison or base and explain my aspects of difference about my subjects. Right, my subjects. Right, good. Third P represents pattern, the pattern of organization. How I'm going to organize these points and discuss them in this paragraph. In what way I'm going to order these points and order and show the different similarities or the different differences with regard to my subjects. Here, of course, we have also two basic patterns for this type of paragraphs. We will just speak about them now briefly and explain them later in details. We have the first pattern is called block organization or block style. Block style. Example here, you introduce the first subject, then you discuss the different points within it. Then you move on to the second subject, then discuss the same points within it, showing how the second element is different from or how it is similar to the first subject. For example, in the paragraph about motorbike and cars, I will discuss first my subject, which is cars. I will speak about speed of cars, form of cars, and safety in cars. Then I will move on to motorbikes. Then I will speak about also their forms and their safety and their speed, and how this safety and form of speed is or are different from or similar to the first subject, which is the car. Of course, depending on what the purpose I introduced in the paragraph. Clear? And second pattern is called point by point paragraph. Point by point paragraph. Now here, of course, I'm going to introduce these points, point by point, and at every point I will compare or contrast my subjects with regard to this point. For example, I will first speak about form, notion or point of form. Then I will speak about the form of the car and the form of motorbike. Then I will move on to the speed, point of speed. Then I will speak about the speed of cars and the speed of motorbikes. Then I will move on to the third point, which is safety. I will speak about the safety in cars and the safety of motorbikes, of course, showing either points of similarity or the aspects of difference clear between these subjects. Right. Then the 4P represents presentation. Now it's time to presentation, to present my work in the form of an outline. I must prepare my outline now. Clear. I have my purpose to contrast or compare. I have my subjects. I put my topic sentence, which includes subjects and controlling idea. I will compare or contrast. Then, second part is support sentences. I will introduce, of course, the 3 points or 4 points of my development and discussion, and of course in order, and order them as I decide in my topic sentence. Clear, right? According to the pattern, whether block style or point by point. Right. So in the second part, I will order my points according to the way or the style of this paragraph, whether point by point or block style. At the end, I conclude and restate what I said in the first sentence. Right. And like this, I have followed this methodical way of writing to write a good comparison and contrast paragraph. Clear? Good. Now let's take an example, model paragraph about this type to see how all these elements, how all these terms are implemented and used practically in this model paragraph. This paragraph is about two elements, which are country, town, and city. Country, town, and city. These are my subjects here in this paragraph. Now I will see if this writer wants to contrast or compare these two subjects. Now we look for the purpose in the first sentence. A small country town provides me with what I consider the good life, unlike a big city. Unlike a big city. So here I have my subjects, which are country town and city. And I have these are the topic also. I have unlike, my controlling idea, and also the word which shows the purpose of the writer. So as he uses unlike, it means he will speak only about the differences between country, town, and city. Only about differences, not similarities. Clear? Good. A country town has fewer people. Here is the first point of contrast. Clear? Number of people. Fewer people. Therefore, they live on big lots with plenty of space. Cities have large clusters of people living on small lots, very close to each other. So here, as you see, the writer introduces the first point, which is number of people. And he explains and shows how the country town and the city are different in this point. He says that country town contains fewer people and the city contains a large number of people. Clear? Then, the air is second point of contrast here. In the country is clean. On the other hand, city air has measurable amount of pollution, and many lung and throat diseases are undoubtedly attributable to industrial city atmosphere. Right. So here also he introduces the second point, which is the air, and he shows how the country town is different from the city in terms of the air. He says that air in the country is clean and clear, and in the city is polluted. Third, people move slower in the country. Slower, right? Here, comparison of comparative form of comparison, right? Slower in the country, they are not troubled constantly by emotional, disorders such as anxiety attacks. In the city, however, you see here transitions to show contrast. Movement is constant, fast-paced, and sometimes reckless. So here also he mentions the third point of contrast, which is people's movement. He said that and he shows how they are different. In the city, it is fast, but in the town, it is slow, this movement of people. Then, fourth point is friendships come easier in the country. People are willing to stand around and chat. They take time with each other. City friendships are brief and short-lived, as an encounter with an overlooked sailor's clerk, as if you meet someone suddenly in the street and you leave him quickly. Right, so here he also mentions this point of contrast, and he shows how friendship in city and town are different. He says that friendship in towns is easier, clear, and firmer, whereas in cities it is short-lived, clear, and complicated, right, and quick. He ends by saying, hence, country life is far better than city life for me. City life for me. Here he also states the first topic sentence. So as you see here, we have different elements and components for a correct and an ideal comparison and contrast paragraph. We have the subjects country, town, and city, we have the purpose is clear, which is contrast using the word, causing idea, which is unlike, to show our differences. Now, here he uses the 4 points of number of people, the air, and also people's movement and friendship. Then also he shows the differences clear between the two subjects with regard to these points, following using the pattern of point by point. You see, every time he first mentions a point, then he explains how the two subjects are different in this point. Clear, point by point pattern. Then he writes this model paragraph to show us how to write this type correctly. Clear. So this is the end of our first part of the lesson. Next time we will see more details about the two patterns of organization, which are block style organization and point by point style. Clear when writing this type of paragraphs. So follow please.